coming in the hole. This is probably one of the nicest cells I've ever been in.
Badass, for sure.
And if you can look at it, everything is 6 inches thick. And when you come on up here, you can get a view of how this air, it's like 60,000 CFMs of air moves through this room. And that's what evacuates it so quickly. In with the fresh and out with the exhaust there. So what we have is, I'm just gonna give you a basic lay of the land right here. So we're in St. Louis, Missouri. It's at a private place. And it's through a friend of Shane's, and we're very gracious for this gentleman to let us come in here on his pad and his turf, his terms, and play with our hot rods. It gives us all the real consistent data that we need, because we don't need to go to a place where we're guessing where the dyno's getting overheated or the room was contaminated or all these silly little stories that you hear about. So with that said, this place is set up to run all-wheel drive. So when you see these blue modules right here, these are not in their correct places. They're just laying around randomly. We utilize one of these modules to tie down the front end, because when we start getting after this, the front end's gonna wanna start rising up, and we just want everything to keep settled down. So it's probably the most expensive anchor that's ever gonna be on the front of this car. So obviously there's no front end in this thing. It's just for the ease of us moving around and evaluating what's going on here as we run. We take the hood off and we left it at home, back in Dubuque. So with that said, it's still the same car. Larry Larson changed some things around right here. Up in the front, back to one of our old videos, you can see how we've lightened the car up by utilizing some titanium up here in the front. What you'll see is a whole lot of space here, because this is not our street driven radiator, this is our racing radiator. When we go to street, it's got a lot more capacity, it's larger, and this is all full of fans and whatnot. So most people might look at this and say, hey, you ain't gonna make it very far with that. That's true. It will not make it very far with that much water, but basically back to the 640-inch power plant. Biggest changes happen underneath the valve covers. We're gonna show you some video later on. Ben came up and said, listen, we gotta go and start over this whole thing. So he literally took a mill and just ground everything off the top of it. It was just a flat piece of billet. And we went to our friends at Jesel, and they came up with a plan, and they drew it up. Ben looked at the plan, overseeing the whole design process of that, and came up with an idea, said this is what it's going to take to make this thing stiff enough for the cylinder pressures you use. We got to move a lot of things around right here, and it was painfully slow. When they told us, like, hey, you know, we'll probably get to it in a year and start drawing something up as like longer than a year, and ultimately it seemed like it ticked off like 2 complete years, and we started seeing some product from them, and it was awesome. It was well worth the wait, and that was the hardest thing to do. Ben looked at some of the push rod scenario where we're at, so we went to some Manton, and they came up with some great stuff with us, and that's probably going to be one of the first things that when we pull the valve cover off, Ben's going to inspect is probably some of these push rods. When we get up there, we might see some telltale signs on the end of it, is my guess. Obviously, the first thing we're going to look at is, you know, is our lash moving around? It's a fresh motor? Is it something getting tight? Is something way loose? Right now, my guess is as consistent as everything's running and sounding. I think everything's going to be within spec. Just so you know, for our own program, we're going to run straight across the board 6,000. That's what it's called. The motor's got such a big chunk of aluminum for a block and head. It's probably going to grow to around 20 thousandths, plus or minus 5 when it's hot. So that's just a guessing thing. So if we actually had to pull the valve covers off right now and start looking at stuff, we'd have to get a baseline to what that would be and just use it for a relativity thing. So if we did it and when it's hot today, we looked at it hot tomorrow and say, wow, is everything growing 6,000? What's the problem? You know what I mean? So there's some technicality in there, but some of you guys have been waiting to hear and see this car run just like the rest of us have for the last 2 years. The other thing we're going to go into later is the cylinder pressure stuff and really see how that really is working and how we can utilize that as a tool. And truthfully, when Ben walked in, we had some of the Plex working. We're looking at it. We really weren't using it to its full potential. We weren't knowing if it's the spark, the lead on the spark, the lead on the injection timing, too much, too little. What was getting us the biggest gain. So we made about 8 pulls before Ben got here. We're starting to get a handle on it, realizing that our 4 bad customers below 4,000 RPMs is 1, 3, 6, and 2. Ben came walking in here and literally in 5 minutes looked up and goes, you guys must be having a problem with 1, 6, 3, and 2.
1, 6, 2, and maybe 3.
Yeah, exactly the numbers you just said.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're drawing out the far corner and go, wait, 1's leading 2, and I go, wait, hold on, and 6 and 3.
The CA50 is going to be affected by the mixture too.
Absolutely. So if the mixture's fucked up,
we've got lambda. Try and get the mixture right, and those will come back to the party.
Yep.
Like, yeah, we have been. So that's the real data, and we're going to show you a little bit later on. The rest of the lay of the land right here, there's those big modules. I believe these are capable, each module here in the back, I think is 3,000 or 6, it's 6,000, I guess, combined is what this dyno is capable of. So obviously we won't hit that, but we'll probably make at least half of that here. And that might happen today, but down the line we will. So, and please respond. If there's something that we're overlooking that's just possibly second nature to us and you want to hear the question, pop it and respond back to it, because we want like a little feedback with this whole thing. And we want you to learn just like we're learning here. And we're just loving this journey. It's just so awesome. And once again, it comes back to Ben with this whole thing, giving us real capabilities of seeing this data. This is so super fun. Just been waiting for this. Thanks, Ben.
You're welcome.
This is so cool.
Good time. Lots of fun.
It's going to be a whole lot of fun. You betcha. Yeah. As long as the car participates, the mechanical pieces in here and participates, it's so far. I knock wherever there's some wood, but it's going great so far.
All right, so you did all the compression. You got none of the work in return. This would be ideal when this triangle and this triangle. So this is the piston doing work on the gas, and this is the gas doing the work pushing the piston down. So this is start of combustion, end of combustion. You want it to be equally split between here. So this is 0%, that's 100%, 50%'s here.
Got it.
If your work is balanced on both sides, then you're ideal.
It draws the rounded shape.
Yep. So when you're late, it comes up, and now it's lazy. When you're super early, it'll come up here.
Yeah. Okay. Draw the curve the other way around.
Yep.
So what we just found out here is Ben Strader flew into town, and we were having a whole lot of fun until he got here. And
walked right in and just
now
took
we
over.
actually got to go to work because we got some real data. If you can come on over here, James, with that camera. So we've been already depicted that from 2,500 to 4,000 RPMs. We just want to see what the motor really is doing. We don't care what final results as far as horsepower and torque rating is, but we just want to know what makes this whole, physically what this 640 cubic inch motor wants, and we're going to listen to it. So we've been listening to it all morning. They weren't quite sure why 1, 6, 3, and 2 cylinders just weren't happy. And so we were able to pull up a specific data right here, which Mr. Strader will explain what CA50 actually means.
Sure. So I basically walked in and everybody started saying this is happening and that's happening. I'm like, well, let's look at what the data is telling us. So what I did is I made a graph of all 8 cylinders laid on top of each other for what's called the CA50. So when we talk about the combustion process, when the ignition begins at the spark, that's 0% of my combustion is complete. And when I've burned all the mixture and air and fuel in the cylinder, then we've 100% completed. And basically halfway through those points becomes a target that we like to look at called CA50, which is the crank angle where 50% of the mixture in the chamber was consumed. And we use that to tell us when the ignition timing is correct or how long the combustion was taking. And so what I did is I took all 8 cylinders and laid them on top of each other, and immediately I was like, oh, it looks like 1, 2, 3, and 6 are having a problem. Everyone went, oh my gosh, that's what we've been chasing all morning. So we did in 30 seconds what you would have chased for hours, the traditional way of making dyno pools.
And a normal racer their whole life.
Sure, yeah, maybe
because
never
it's camouflage. You would never be able to find that 4.
Right.
Because we already had data with lambda in here, which most people don't have individual lambda, so you wouldn't have had that opportunity.
Right.
And then you'd just be hunting at, well, why is there power down here today at the dyno, and you're buying all the right stuff right here. So looking at the lambda, right.
So what's happened over the years is we've just come to accept that engines don't run good at lower RPM, right? And if there's something we can do about it by having individual lambdas and individual cylinder controls, if you just had a single lambda in your tailpipe and the engine runs rough, you're like, I don't know, the engine runs rough, right? But now we can pinpoint specific cylinders at specific RPMs and change, Shane's over there with all the power in the world to change the tune-up. We just got to give him enough data to know what to change, and that's what we're doing here.
Right. So with that, going back to the conventional method of looking at fuel and spark, we were able to get a result, not necessarily what we're hoping for yet, but we can make the number move by moving the fuel. And what I mean by moving the fuel is advancing or retarding the timing of the injection process. And of course, the spark side of things, you can do that, and everybody tries that. So, but we're moving individual cylinders, trying to make things happen, and the motor responds to it. So we have the right stuff. And when Ben came in here, we do have the data with this new Plex system that we're going to get really into here, and looking at the CA50, which is in the middle of that combustion process, and he could see exactly, without us telling him, exactly what was going on. So now we're going to go and make a correction. We're going to try it with fuel here first, because ultimately we don't want to make those cylinders more aggressive without the right ingredients, which is the fuel. So we're going to go after the fuel first, and I'm not sure if it's just adding or changing the timing of the fuel, but we're going to make an adjustment right here, and then we're going to go after it a little bit and see if we can't move these right here.
To the rest.
Get them rested. This is where we want to be. These all four right here, and this is if you look at the yellow trace right up here, that's cylinder number 1, and that's highly pissed off.
Okay, let's make it less bad.
Okay, let's make it more gooder.
I really like the simplicity of it all.
It is very simple.
Then you can come help from now on.
And don't you enjoy how everything's spread out?
Yeah, it makes it easier to get a wrench in there, doesn't it?
It is. You get in there, you get your spark plug, you can reach your hand between the 2.5-inch tubes.
So is this a new manifold from last time, or is that the same one?
It's the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
We got the silver one.
Same.
Okay. All the same from the first time I met her.
Same but different color.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah, let's make it less bad.
Right.
So we're going to go ahead and make another run here. We're starting down low, and it helps us understand what the engine is all by itself before the turbos come to the party. So when you hear this thing yanking on it, the whole drive line has a capability of being locked up. It's a lock-up torque converter. So right away, this goes right into lockup. Shane's locking it up, and it's locked up at 17,000-1800 RPMs. So you're going to hear this thing grunt. We're doing it on purpose because we want to know what this V8 can do before the turbos come to the party. So you're going to hear it, the tone of it change once it grabs a hold of it, and then it starts getting some air to it and moving on. So
here we go.
So what we're adding here is, we've been working on this. Is top secret. We've been running on this distilled water for a long time.
Hydrogen.
And we're doing this cold fusion thing. All right, getting suited up. So in this, it might seem like a silly thing to get completely suited up and not actually go anywhere, but in the case of primarily just a fire is what we're looking at. And that could happen from a fuel line coming loose or something like that, or springing a leak and then getting on a hot header, and all of a sudden this thing lights up and flames. By the time I can get this thing shut down, get out of the car, I'll probably get hurt, so I don't want anything bare. So I'm putting on a fire suit and gloves here and a helmet, and that's just the right way to doing it. A lot of people don't.
So we've been playing this game all day with half the motor. It's not quite, it is half, it's half the number of cylinders, but it's not like the left side or the right side like you'd expect. It's cylinder 1, 2, 3 and number 6 that act way different than the other 4 act. So we're still playing this game trying to figure out what they want using the combustion analysis software and the individual cylinder lambda data from the Motec to try and correlate, when the cylinders aren't running, what's the mixture look like, and then we're trying to adjust the mixture to fix it. And so we just keep iterating and making changes, trying to make it better. So the concept would be, since we have lambda and we could see that those cylinders mixtures are incorrect for what we're asking the engine to run at, we're trying to fix that first before we make any other adjustment to it to try to see if we can even it out and get it to run better. And it's really, we're not really terribly concerned with what the engine's doing. It 2,500 to 3,500 RPM, because obviously we race it down the racetrack at a much higher RPM band than that. However, when a turbo engine has to spool on the starting line, the engine goes wide open throttle against the trans brake, which is kind of like being on a dyno. So if the engine is weak between 2,500 and 3,500, it won't spool the turbos up as fast, which means you put more heat in the torque converter, and more importantly, it can take so long to stage that you lose the race. So although this isn't a make or break for what the engine's doing, if we can understand what it's doing at this relatively low RPM and low threshold of power, it will help us later when we're trying to make these decisions when we are making big power.
I took the combustion pressures that we measured, and if we know the bore and stroke, it's basically force over distance. We can calculate the work in the cylinder. We can calculate how much torque each cylinder makes, okay? So if you come up here like this, you can see how much torque each individual cylinder was making at any RPM. If we add them all together, that's in Newton meters. If we add them all together, we get the total amount of torque the engine made, and then I converted that into foot-pounds, multiply that times the RPM, divide by 5252, I got horsepower, right? But what you notice is, when you come up here to 6,300 RPM, it's making 1372, but my dyno system only made 1219.
Because of volumetric efficiency, or no?
That's all the friction loss in the car.
Oh,
That's what it made inside the engine.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, everything else.
This is my paycheck.
Convert.
That's
Yep.
after taxes.
Convert it, yep.
There you go.
Yeah. Yep.
Pretty cool, huh?
So, and that's actually really good because we got it locked up.
Yeah,
if we unlocked it, let it go to the converter, it'd probably add another 5, 6, 7% when it.
Well, this would make the same, but that would change.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, I meant the differential would be
Yes,
15% or 12 or something like that.
Pretty easy to test
What
the
is
theory.
that?
So what's nice here is
Yeah,
you
it
can
is.
see where your strong and weak cylinders are. Who's making the most torque, who's making the least torque. Right, so, you know, and of course you can zoom in but you know, guess what? The ones that are having trouble are the ones making the least torque. Wow, big surprise, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, pretty cool.
We gotta get rid of the poopers.
Yeah.
That is really cool. Did you see this thing?
You just need like 60, 70 pounds of boost to be fine.
It carries a lot of stuff.
You need to run
doesn't
it unlocked
Absolutely.
and see what that actually ends up. This is a good place to do it too. We're not trying to make a ton of power.
Sure.
So the converter will be as
If
tight
you
as
unlock it,
can
you'll
be.
know whatever the stall and yeah, I mean basically how much loss you have.
And once we get to 6,000, then whatever the difference between the cylinder power and the power of the wheel is the loss through the drivetrain of the converter slipping.
Absolutely.
But it might be that it's not what you think it is, because if the converter's multiplying it all,
Might be
you
different.
might be right back where you thought where you would have been
Is that
when it locked up.
interesting? This will be fun. So I told you before, we're locking up the drive line so we can get real data as far as what the engine's technically doing. So it's direct drive, it's locked up, and one-to-one. So now we're going to unlock it, and the torque converter is going to take a play in here. So now things are going to be, there's going to be a lot of variables. There's going to be slipping and sliding going on. So we'll see what it does. I gotta kind of pee right now, so I hope I don't wet my pants in there. Hope nothing scares me. I think we were at 8,000 last time. I think we might go a little higher. So we're gonna apply the lockup again, so it's gonna yank a lot different than the one we ran the torque converter before. So we want to see specific data from the dyno. So the best way to do that is locking up the converter, getting it out of your way, out of the equation.
$24.84.
Woo! That fucker's loud in there. Woo! Wow.
When you want to hit 2,000 foot-pounds. Pretty good driver, Rod.
Man, I stayed in my own lane the whole time.
Yeah.
There was a guy had road rage in there, man. He wouldn't believe it.
more timing at that
See if it burns
mixture.
Yeah, if that's the mixture you want.
So, okay, I'm willing to do that, but
So
here's
like,
what I want
see
to
how
know.
all the cylinders slope up?
Yeah,
They're
what I want to
here.
know is, can I fix it with a mixture? And then if I put it back, can I fix it with timing?
Okay, I'm good with that. So it'll take 2 runs to figure it out.
Or maybe more than 2, but it'd be interesting to know that difference.
I would like to know
Because
too,
I'm
yeah.
almost positive you're going to be able to fix it with mixture, and then you can put the mixture right back where it was and stick. I don't know if you can fix it, but I think you can get closer to where
Let's
it
find out.
was.
Yeah.
Because you know the trouble with this is that the mixture is affecting.
Yeah, your combustion duration.
You're changing the effective octane of the fuel with methanol because you're making it richer and you're cooling the charge off and you're slowing the flame front down because it's too rich. But
Yeah.
you can't get away with this with gasoline because it won't burn over a large enough number of ratios.
Right.
But because alcohol will burn at so many different air fuel ratios, you can offset the fact that its octane is low by making it too rich and then sticking too much timing in it to fix it. Which is where everyone always gets in trouble because what they do is they stick timing in it to fix that.
Yep.
And then as soon as they take a 0.5% of fuel out, it fucking blows up
burns
because
the
they
thing
lost
up.
all the octane.
Yep, I'll give you that. So one of the things that we're looking at during the runs that we make is we come back and we can plot all the cylinders together and look at any parameter we want. In this case, what we're looking at is one of the indicators that tells us if we have the correct spark event, like ignition timing. The actual value we're looking at here is called CA50, which is the crank angle where 50% of our total mixture is burned. But what we see is that the beginning of the run, where you're really below where the camshaft's working, as expected, your cylinders would be kind of unhappy and they're getting mixed up and you're getting a bunch of EGR in there. One's rich, one's lean. And so your timing looks quite late in this case. As he gets into the throttle and the boost comes in and everything starts going the right way, then you can see where they tighten up and they're really nice. We got a couple that are late here and that could just be some misfires or something, but they pretty much stay real tight all the way through here until around 6,500. And then we noticed on the Motec data that that's also where it starts to get rich. Well, as it's getting richer and richer and richer, it's likely getting more EGR on the cylinder. And you can see that all 8 cylinders are trending upwards, which means it would be easy to go in there and say, well, we just got to put more advance in it, but we may or may not want to do that. So first what we're going to do is change our lambda mixtures and get all that straight. We'll see how that affects how fast the combustion happens, which of course is the same thing as controlling your ignition event. But if we can get there without adding more ignition timing advance, that's the way we'd like to do it. So we're going to do that right now.
Okay, we're making progress, learning about the car. It's so impressive. Car is so stable that we can just come in here literally like every 10 or 15 minutes and make another run. I think this is like number 15 for us right now, and all the thing we do is just keep adding fuel. So pretty lucky. But you know what? That's the guys at the shop, you know, doing such a good job at assembling and working on it. It's been going on for 2 years. It just doesn't happen overnight.
Got the tune-up pretty good where we wanted it, going to 8,000. So we're gonna see if our money was well spent on the Spintron. We're gonna turn it up a little bit. So same boost-ish, I mean same boost curve and everything, same basic tune-up that we've been working on, but we're gonna let Rod drive her out the back about 9,100 now. So it should sound good.
It's loud. It's at about $5,000. It's like, okay, that was fun. That's enough. I'm like, oh.
It gets exponentially louder. 5 to 6 is way
Oh
louder
my
than 6 to 7. So let's see what
I
9100
can't believe it. I got
sounds like.
earplugs with helmet on. I just don't understand why the racers don't complain about it like I am. It's loud in there. It's just loud.
When you're a professional driver, you get paid nothing.
Yeah, you're not supposed to complain.
It's not super loud out here.
What?
It's not super loud out
It
here.
doesn't bother me at all. Did the super rich thing again? As soon as it went crazy rich, it like
Driving in the field again, huh?
Yeah.
I knew something was going on because the car went up about another 2 inches. Yeah. There was a cough in there too.
Yeah, we heard it.
yeah.
I don't know where it's at, about $6,000 or something.
Well, but you're making 1,000 more horsepower too.
We're, looking at the combustion analysis stuff, and if you swing back over there and look at that graph, you could see at the end, right past the reticule line, where the graphs start to go towards the top of the screen. That means that their efficiency is going down as they go past that RPM point. So what we're trying to do is put the ignition timing earlier, right at that point, and taper it up on the same slope that they go upward on, to try and get them to hold a constant value through that whole RPM band, and try and keep the power up potentially. And then we made a couple of the individual cylinder trims too to make that same sort of an adjustment. So now it's just a matter of trying it and see what we get.
Rod's getting hydrated.
We added a couple of degrees of timing essentially, and we rejetted it. Just a little bit. Well, that's a wrap for the first day. Ben, your thoughts?
My thoughts are that it's really cool to get to come and do something with all of the data for once, and really understand what's going on. I mean, Shane and I went back and forth. You're really doing all the work and doing the tuning, and I'm just kind of correlating what I'm seeing with your opinions. And, but to be able to say, we have the triple threat, right? Like you got the dyno data, you have the ECU data, and now you have combustion data. And when all three of those things agree, it's like, yes, that's what's going on.
That's the direction.
So it was really cool. I mean, and we've been very slowly, methodically going through it today. We made plenty of horsepower for the low boost setting that we can have, and we're ready to kind of like amp it up a little bit tomorrow.
The low boost settings,
Yeah,
it's
and
50 pounds.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
the least
low
it can
boost.
you want to
make.
explain that, Shane?
Oh, the explanation is right there where the wastegate's mounted at a 90-degree angle to the exhaust flow. So there's a term called boost creep, which basically says, look, I get a certain boost, and then as I go up in RPM, the boost goes up with revs, and I can't control it. And that's effectively what we have going here, because we have so much exhaust headed for the turbo, and then we're asking it to turn 90 degrees and go out of this little bitty wastegate, and it doesn't really want to do that. So most of the exhaust energy ends up in the turbo, spinning the turbo up, And so as we go up with revs and we gain exhaust flow, we gain boost, and then which gains
just
more
gets
exhaust
worse
flow.
the whole time, yeah.
It's sort of a uncontrollable situation. So the minimum boost we can make with the blow-off valve closed on the inlet side is 52 pounds, around 9,000. We can make less boost than that if we leak air off on the blow-off valve side, but it's super inefficient doing that because you're asking the turbo to make 52 pounds and you're only putting 20 in the engine, for example. So anyway, be that as it may, we managed to come up with a pretty good combination for the day between looking at the cylinder pressure analysis software and making the changes that we can see correlate with the lambdas and individual cylinders like Ben said. So yeah, we'll see what tomorrow brings.
It was a good day. I'm going to talk about something completely different. How you can disassemble a car, build half of it brand new all over again, strip it all down, powder coat it, figure out where every nut and bolt goes back, come up with a whole new top end to an engine program, put a different transmission in there, all new wiring harnesses in there, remount the back end with all different hardware back there, put it all back together, fire it up, and there's not a drop of water or oil on the floor, and there's no, I don't think there's any, is there any bolts laying around here? There ain't that many bolts underneath there, at least that I can see. So kudos to everybody. Wow, you just don't pull this off. And what do we make, 20 runs?
At least 20.
At least
I
20.
had 18 recordings of combustion data plus all the runs that you
Yeah, so it was like
got
20,
it.
25 runs we made today, and all we did is kept adding fuel. We didn't even take a wrench out of a toolbox, so we're pretty proud of that. Tomorrow morning we're going to come back here, take the valve covers off, inspect, and just see how much truth there is really to that, and we're going to bang on it some more tomorrow. So you guys just keep following. We appreciate everything you guys have done and stuck with us for 2 years when there just wasn't nothing out there to provide for you, and it's pretty cool. And like say hey down in Australia, because that's our second biggest followers, and you guys are probably just getting up right now, aren't they?
Good day.
Good day. Good day, mate.
It could be the Arvo.
Yeah, that's it. So appreciate everybody, and thanks, and see you tomorrow.